Lando Norris has done it again. The reigning Formula One world champion completed back-to-back Grand Prix wins by triumphing at the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort, following his victory in Hungary. But this win was not a straightforward one. At one stage of the race, Kimi Antonelli actually snatched the lead away from Norris. What followed was a fightback that has reignited talk of a genuine championship battle in the second half of the 2026 season. The Dutch Grand Prix weekend had already produced plenty of talking points before the lights even went out on Sunday. Zandvoort was hosting its final weekend on the F1 calendar, and Norris qualified on pole position, beating George Russell and Antonelli to the fastest time. Conditions leading into the race were far from straightforward. While Saturday had been dry, heavy rain fell at Zandvoort in the build-up to Sunday's race, making the drive to the grid tricky for several drivers, with Liam Lawson running through the gravel. Despite the wet build-up, the majority of the field, including Norris, started the race on slick tires. Norris made a clean getaway from pole position, while Antonelli immediately moved ahead of his Mercedes teammate Russell for second place. The opening lap, however, would not be completed without major drama. The opening lap was brought to a dramatic halt when home favorite Max Verstappen lost control of his Red Bull in the final corner, spinning into the barriers and scattering debris across the circuit. Verstappen dipped a wheel onto the white line and hit the wall twice at the final corner, and his race was over before he had even completed a single lap. The incident triggered a red flag, ending the Dutch driver's race before he had completed a lap. The Dutchman was unhurt, but his final home Grand Prix appearance was finished almost as soon as it had begun. For a driver racing in front of his home crowd, the outcome could not have been more painful, and it instantly reshaped the strategic picture for everyone else on the grid. Once the red flag was cleared and the race restarted, it was Antonelli, not Norris, who took command. Kimi Antonelli got a dream launch off the line for the lap 5 restart at Zandvoort after Verstappen's crash, with the Mercedes driver diving into turn 1 ahead of Norris to claim the lead of the race. For a significant portion of the Grand Prix, it appeared that Mercedes had the race under control, with their 19-year-old driver holding station at the front while Norris was forced to sit behind and manage the gap. The race, though, was far from decided. As the laps wound down, Norris began closing in on Antonelli, and the gap that had once looked settled started to shrink rapidly. Norris produced a mega drive to win the Dutch Grand Prix from pole, overhauling Antonelli for victory. The decisive move came at turn 1, where Norris capitalized on Antonelli's fading tires to retake the position that ultimately delivered the win. Norris ultimately needn't have worried about a late virtual safety car phase, as he crossed the line with a sizable margin over Antonelli to seal his second win in a row. Reflecting on the difficulty of the afternoon, Norris said afterwards, "Amazing. A tough race," adding that he had made it hard for himself but delivered a good race. Well fought. Norris crossed the line 11.5 seconds ahead of runner-up Kimi Antonelli, with his Mercedes teammate George Russell completing the podium at Zandvoort. Hamilton finished 4th, Leclerc took 5th, and Piastri was 6th, with Red Bull stand-in Liam Lawson, Audi's Nico Hülkenberg, Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso, and Alpine's Pierre Gasly completing the top 10. This marked Norris' second successive victory and his career 13th win in Formula One. Despite the growing talk about his championship prospects, Norris was careful not to get carried away, stating, "We have to keep working hard. There are still plenty of races, plenty, the battle behind Norris produced its own controversy. Championship leader Antonelli was running second to Norris with 16 laps to go when Mercedes decided to pit him for fresh tires under a virtual safety car, bringing him out in third behind Russell. Realistically, Antonelli had little chance of catching race leader Norris from an 11-second deficit with 7 laps remaining. With Antonelli now behind on significantly fresher tires, Mercedes inverted their cars and instructed Russell to let his teenage teammate through. Russell was not immediately pleased with the call. As he let his teammate through, Russell questioned over team radio, is he going to go for the win? And whether Antonelli was simply planning to catch Norris. Russell had earlier asked Mercedes for some teamwork, suggesting either using Antonelli's car as a buffer or feeding him overtake mode, seemingly aware of the threat posed by the Ferraris behind. Despite his initial frustration, Russell eventually accepted the decision. He explained afterward, "Kimi was ahead of me anyway, so he deserved to finish ahead," and added that with Antonelli's tire advantage, he would have overtaken me anyway, so it was the right decision. Having given up P2, Russell then had to defend third place from a fast-charging Lewis Hamilton over the closing laps. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff defended the decision publicly. He explained that Antonelli was not anywhere near catching Norris, and that the call was simply the safest way to secure points for the team, given that 2 Ferraris were closing in behind. Wolff added, "It was just the safest way in terms of scoring points. The result has significant implications for the title fight." Russell now sits 59 points behind Antonelli in the Drivers' Championship after 12 rounds, with the Italian leading on 242 points to Russell's 183. For Norris, the gap remains larger. The Briton is still 83 points off the championship lead, though he is steadily whittling away at the deficit with back-to-back victories. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella praised Norris' growth as a driver following the race. Speaking to reporters at Zandvoort, Stella said, "Would say that definitely he is now expressing a higher level of assertiveness." He continued, "The maneuver to pass Antonelli, I think, is a really good demonstration of that," adding that Norris is demonstrating more self-confidence. Stella elaborated further on what has changed in Norris' approach, explaining that self-confidence is not demonstrated by being the most aggressive, and that sometimes being self-assured means recognizing when not to force a fight prematurely. He went on to say, "I think assertiveness and confidence are probably the 2 characteristics that he has improved the most from a non-technical, non-operational point of view." Stella also noted that this transformation traces back to a turning point early in 2025, when, in his words, something clicked, leading to what he described as continuous improvement. "It's almost like I see Lando stronger and stronger race by race." The events at Zandvoort raise an important question for the remainder of the 2026 season. Mercedes still holds the championship lead through Antonelli, and the team has shown it is willing to make firm strategic calls, including team orders, to protect that advantage. But McLaren now has the momentum of 2 consecutive victories, delivered in contrasting circumstances, one following a strong start in Hungary, and one built on a genuine recovery after losing the lead in Zandvoort. Norris has now demonstrated that he can absorb a setback mid-race, manage tire wear, and execute a decisive overtake under pressure, all in the space of a single Grand Prix. Formula One now turns its attention to the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, the next round on the calendar. Norris arrives with momentum after 2 straight wins. Antonelli still holds the championship lead and will be looking to respond after conceding position drama within his own team. Verstappen will